Okay. Jean agreed immediately. She was so straightforward that it was hard to believe. Alexander had been a little afraid of Jean's straightforwardness these past few days. He always felt that the more she was like this, the more something bad would happen. Don't play any tricks, Jonathan threatened. I don't want what happened 7 years ago to be repeated. Don't worry, I'm not that stupid anymore. Alexander, prepare some gifts tomorrow morning and bring Jean and George to apologize. You absolutely can't let there be any conflicts between our families, Jonathan instructed. Jean was very clear that the reason Jonathan did this was that he was worried that the Locks would be so angry that they would break off the engagement. He must have thought that if the Locks managed to work on MUK's project but if the marriage fell apart, it would be a huge loss for the Lawrences. Therefore, Jonathan cleverly made his stance clear in advance by giving the Locks an explanation. Yes, Alexander responded respectfully. Jonathan lectured everyone before letting everyone leave. Jean returned to her room. George had showered and was lying on the bed to sleep. Jean sat on the sofa in her room and looked at the indescribable pictures on her phone. She asked, George, are you asleep? No. Can you use the computer with your eyes closed? Quote. Forget it, I'll ask Kingsley to help me, Jean said to herself. After all, it was inappropriate to let George see the pictures that were unsuitable for children. Ellipsis. The next day, Jean was woken up by a servant early in the morning. After getting dressed, she left the Lawrences' manor at 10 a.m. Only Alexander, Jennifer, Jean, and George were in the car. Jasmine and Joshua did not join them. It was said that the Swans would come to discuss the details of Eden and Jasmine's wedding in the afternoon. According to the etiquette of Harkin, the male party would take the initiative to go to the female party's house to discuss matters. Naturally, the Swans went to the Lawrences' manor. Therefore, Alexander had Jasmine and Joshua get ready at home. They would return after having lunch with the Locks. The car arrived at the Locks' manor. It was also extremely luxurious. The prestigious families in Southampton City were passed down from generation to generation. Most of them were relatives of the previous royal families. They branched out, developed, and the fittest survived. Up until now, there were only 12 families in Southampton City that could truly be considered prestigious families. The Lawrences and the Locks were among them, but their rankings were relatively lower. The Swans was naturally the leader of the 12 families. They were the dominant family. In addition, Zachary from the Swans had contributed greatly to the establishment of the country in the past. Even the current royal family would be courteous to the Swans, so they were even more prominent. At the entrance of the Lock residence, the servants were already waiting for the Lawrences hurriedly welcomed them respectfully. In the main hall, everyone from the Locks was present. This included Damien and his wife, Hugh's family, and Thegis. At this moment, they were putting on airs. Jeremiah seemed to have forgotten the scene of him being so ill-mannered yesterday. At this moment, it was all the fault of the Lawrences. Alexander was quite enthusiastic and proactive. Naturally, Jennifer said, our old master had insomnia last night. He said that our family has caused yours to suffer grievance these past few days. He asked us to bring Jean and George over to apologize early this morning. How can that be? How could it be Ms. Lawrence's fault? It was all my fault. I shouldn't have lost my temper at George at the charity banquet. At the old master's birthday banquet yesterday, Jeremiah shouldn't have had a conflict with George either. It was all our family's fault. How could eldest young Lady Lawrence be at fault? Octavia had a sarcastic look on her face. The corners of Jean's mouth curled up into a smile. She's really changing faces with ease. Jean, hurry up and apologize to Auntie, Alexander reminded. Jean walked forward. Octavia did not even look at her. When she thought of how Jean had made her suffer so much in just a few days, she wished she could strangle her to death. Once she heard that the Lawrences was going to come and apologize, she had thought of how to deal with Jean and make her submit to her in the future. Jean stepped forward. Auntie, I didn't know how to behave. If I offended you in any way, please forgive me. You acted tough then talk softly to me after that. Are you playing tricks with me? Octavia interrupted Jean's words. She did not appreciate her kindness at all. What do you want me to do then? Jean asked. How would I dare to ask you to do anything? If I do that, you'll say that I'm arrogant. Octavia mocked. Octavia, look, we'll be a family in the future. Jeannie is sincerely apologizing to you this time. Just tell her what to do so that you'll forgive her. Jennifer hurriedly tried to ease the atmosphere. She looked like a peacemaker. Jennifer's ability was that she would make everyone think that she was a good person. She was a good person, who truly thought of others. Octavia's eyes moved. She uncrossed legs and said, "Since you've spoken, Jennifer, I don't want to make things difficult for Jean. You should know that Jean humiliated the Locks with what she did. I definitely wouldn't mind if she only embarrassed me, but it's no longer a private matter if it concerned the image of the Locks." We understand," Jennifer said in a good tone, "just tell her what to do." "Then I won't beat around the bush," Octavia said fiercely to Jean. "Since Jean came to apologize sincerely, and since she'll be my daughter-in-law in the future, I don't want to prolong this conflict between us. I'll just state my conditions." "Go ahead," Jennifer agreed. Octavia spoke with a cold expression. "Firstly, Jean certainly has to apologize for what she did to our family, but a simple apology won't be sincere enough. So, she has to serve tea and kneel on the ground to apologize to me. George also has to sincerely apologize to Jeremiah." Jean's eyes moved slightly. Alexander agreed without thinking. "No problem." "Secondly," Octavia said coldly, "Jean has brought shame to the Locks in front of so many noble families. She must make a post on Facebook to explain the conflict between her and our family during this period. The main point is that she must state that she was in the wrong and deeply regrets her actions. Don't worry, as long as Jean posts it, I'll respond right away. I won't embarrass your family. The purpose of that is just to let others know that our relationship is harmonious." "Sure." Alexander continued to agree to her conditions. "After Jean has finished drafting the posting, I'll show it to you before she posts it." Octavia nodded. Following that, she said, "Thirdly, and most importantly, it's about Jean and Thegis getting married. Everyone knows Jean's character. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to subdue her. Thegis's character is weak. In order for our families not to have any conflicts after the marriage, I think Jean should sign a premarital agreement. I've asked Thegis to print out the contents of the agreement. Thegis, read it out." Jean simply watched the show of the Locks. Indifferently, she wondered, aren't the Locks afraid of being struck by lightning?